My grandfather was a Feng Shui master whose name was known throughout the region. People in the county called him by a title spoken with both reverence and caution, Old Master Lu. With nothing more than a nod or a shake of his head, a piece of land could turn from a blessed site into a cursed one, and a prosperous family could slide into decline. Those who sought him out were not only ordinary villagers concerned with ancestral graves, but also merchants, officials, and even figures who stood halfway between righteousness and darkness, bringing with them gold, silver, and secrets that could never be spoken in the open. Yet the strangest thing of all was this: he never passed down his true teachings to his 4 sons. My father and my uncles spent their entire lives in the village, understanding Feng Shui only on the surface, choosing house orientations, measuring burial sites, avoiding a few basic taboos. But the core truths, the way to read dragon veins, the art of setting, deadly formations, the methods of defying heaven to alter fate, he never revealed a single word. Some said he was selfish, others claimed he was hoarding his knowledge. But as I grew older, I came to understand the truth. It wasn't that he didn't want to pass it on, he didn't dare to. Because Feng Shui, once it touches dragon veins and destiny, is no longer knowledge. It becomes karma. Before his death, my grandfather summoned my father, my eldest uncle, and my second uncle to his bedside. His voice was weak, but every word he spoke struck like iron nails driven into wood. He said that the Lu family carried a curse that skipped generations. It would not fall immediately upon his children, but would wait for the weakest generation, the one with the thinnest fate, before descending. And the one destined to bear that karma was me. When he said this, the entire room fell silent. I was still young and didn't understand what a curse meant. I only saw the color drain from the adults' faces. My grandfather offered no further explanation, only uttered a single sentence that sent a chill down everyone's spine. After I die, everything will truly begin. His will was unlike any funeral arrangements anyone had ever heard of. First, there was to be no mourning, no wailing, no announcements. The burial had to be completed the same day. Second, before burial, the corpse's legs were to be tightly bound with hemp rope. Third, the coffin was to be buried upright, head pointing downward, dug to a depth of 5 meters. Most bizarre of all, after the burial, the entire family was to pretend no one had died. No grave marker, no offerings, no rituals. Only after exactly 7 days could the coffin be exhumed and reburied properly, with funeral rites conducted as normal. To anyone who understood Feng Shui, all 3 conditions were extreme calamities. Binding the legs with hemp rope prevents the soul from finding its way back, essentially turning the dead into a wandering ghost. Burying the head downward is a supreme taboo, severing the path to rebirth. Digging 5 meters deep immerses the body in damp yin energy, what Feng Shui calls yin corruption entering the bones, enough to harm 3 generations of descendants. Any Feng Shui master would shake his head upon hearing such demands. And yet my grandfather, the one who understood Feng Shui better than anyone, chose these calamities deliberately. Only later did I understand. He was not seeking peaceful rest. He was using the calamity of his own death to buy a chance to break the formation for his descendants. Using greater disaster to counter greater disaster, using his own karma to block the karma of the family. Before he closed his eyes, he called me to his side. His thin, trembling hand placed a bundle of old cloth into mine. Inside were 3 items: half of a jade pendant, a yellowed ancient book, and a rusted bronze mirror. The half-jade pendant looked ordinary, yet, when held, it carried a strange sensation, warm and cold intertwined, as if it did not fully belong to the living world. He said that if everything went smoothly after 7 days, the jade would protect me and help change my fortune. But if something went wrong, I was to take the jade and seek out someone who could help him return to origin. No matter what price that person demanded, I was to agree. As for the ancient book, he warned me that under no circumstances was I to open it before the age of 15, and that at 18 I must burn it with my own hands. The instructions sounded both contradictory and terrifying, as if what was written inside was never meant for someone who wished to live long. He said it contained the true Feng Shui teachings of the Liu family, knowledge he had never dared to pass on lightly. The Qingming bronze mirror he ordered me to carry at all times from that day onward. He did not explain its purpose, only saying, "When you understand what's in the book, you will naturally know how to use it." The mirror was mottled with rust and reflected faces poorly, yet every time I looked into it, I felt as though something on the other side was staring back at me. Those 3 items were not relics. They were 3 keys to karma, to Feng Shui, and to my own fate. Before he passed, he even arranged an escape route for me, to become a live-in son-in-law, because staying alive mattered more than preserving one's name. At the time, I didn't understand. I only saw my grandfather smile gently, as he always had. But looking back now, that smile belonged to someone who had already seen the ending long ago. The curse had been planted, the Feng Shui formation had been set, and from the moment my grandfather closed his eyes, my fate was no longer something I had the right to choose. 7 days after my grandfather was buried, the sky began to behave strangely. From early morning, black clouds pressed low, so heavy they seemed ready to collapse onto the rooftops. There was no wind, no birdsong. The air thickened, crushing against the chest, making it hard to breathe. By noon, rain began to pour, but it was rain without thunder. Each drop fell evenly, cold and dense, as if someone were deliberately pouring water from above, intent on drowning the land in silence. The village elders started whispering among themselves. They said that rain without thunder was yin rain, appearing only when a great calamity had yet to be resolved. My father stood under the eaves, staring toward the hill where my grandfather was buried, his face drained of color. I saw his hands trembling, though he tried to hide it. By dusk, the most terrifying thing happened. A single bolt of lightning tore open the sky and struck straight down upon the hill. It wasn't scattered lightning nor a chain strike, but one solitary bolt, like a spear hurled from the heavens, landing precisely where the coffin lay. The explosion wasn't loud, yet the earth's ground shook visibly. The entire village lost power in an instant. I heard someone scream, "Heaven has struck the grave." In Feng Shui, lightning striking a burial site is the ultimate taboo. This was no longer misfortune, it was heavenly punishment. It meant that the Heavenly Dao had intervened, declaring its refusal to accept the existing Feng Shui formation. My grandfather had tried to alter fate by seizing a dragon vein, and heaven had answered. No one dared to sleep that night. At dawn on the 8th day, my father and my uncles decided to exhume the grave. On the surface, the reason was the lightning damaged the coffin, but everyone knew that if they didn't dig it up, something far worse would follow. I was forbidden from going, yet I secretly followed the group. When the earth was dug open, a rancid stench rose, nothing like the smell of an ordinary corpse. The coffin emerged, its wood charred and split, as though something inside had struck it with tremendous force. The moment the lid was pried open, everyone froze. Inside was not the body of a dead man. My grandfather lay there, but in a form no one could believe. His upper body still resembled the familiar gaunt old man, yet his back and neck had elongated unnaturally, his skin covered in shimmering dark gray scales. His spine jutted upward, twisted like the backbone of some colossal beast. His hands were curled, fingernails long and sharp, driven deep into the coffin walls, as if he had tried to claw his way out but failed. There were no signs of decay on his face. His eyes were wide open, pupils narrowed into vertical slits, like a serpent's. His mouth gaped slightly, revealing teeth that were no longer entirely human. He had never truly died, or rather, he had died, but could not die completely. One of my uncles collapsed on the spot. My father staggered backward, muttering over and over, "Impossible! This is impossible!" But the truth was even more cruel. My eldest uncle, the one sent down into the pit to untie the hemp rope, vanished. No one saw him leave. There were no footprints, no blood, no scream. Only the hemp rope remained, torn halfway through, as if ripped apart by a force that did not belong to any human being. When the shock began to fade, a long sigh echoed from within the grave. My grandfather spoke. His voice was hoarse and distorted, emerging from a throat no longer human. He did not rise. He merely tilted his head, gazing at us with eyes that were half familiar, half alien. I miscalculated by one step. No one dared to respond. I stood at the back, my heart pounding as if it would burst. The scene before me felt like a nightmare, yet it was brutally real. He explained that years ago he had discovered a dragon vein sleeping deep beneath this land. It was not a benevolent vein, but a fierce dragon sealed away. If awakened, it could alter the fate of an entire family, but the price would be enormous. He had used his own life as a conduit, borrowing Dragon Key to mend the destiny of his descendants. But he had misjudged one thing. Seizing a dragon vein to change fate, he said, is not something just anyone can bear. A dragon vein is like a river of fire. Those with sufficient virtue may harness it. Those without are burned from the inside out. The Liu family appeared stable on the surface, but in truth our blessings were thin and our karmic debt heavy. He could shield his sons from backlash, but by the generation of his grandchildren, the dragon vein began searching for a new host. And it had chosen my eldest uncle. My uncle had not died. He had been dragged away by the dragon vein, becoming a complete sacrifice, to compensate for what my grandfather could no longer bear alone. As for my grandfather, half his body had fused with Dragon Key, while the other half remained human, leaving him trapped as something neither fully dragon nor fully monster, unable to reincarnate, unable to leave the dragon vein. Heaven's lightning had struck the grave not to kill him, but to sever the unfinished Feng Shui formation. From that moment on, the fate of the Liu family officially entered a phase of backlash. Before his consciousness finally began to dissipate, my grandfather turned and looked straight at me. The gaze sent a chill down my spine. "Now it's your turn," he said. The final bearer of karma is always the one who is never given a choice. At that instant, the rain poured down again, heavier, colder. The coffin collapsed, earth and stone burying that twisted body once more. No one dared to dig it up again. From that day on, I understood one thing. Feng Shui is not a path to blessings, but the shortest road to the abyss. And the dragon vein had begun to look directly at me. After the day my grandfather's grave collapsed, our household seemed to fall into a prolonged silence. No one spoke of Feng Shui anymore. No one dared utter the words dragon vein. My eldest uncle was officially reported as missing, but everyone understood that he no longer existed in any human sense. Only I could feel it, something invisible, steadily drawing closer. When I turned 15, the nightmares began to arrive with disturbing regularity. In my dreams, I always found myself standing before a door of blinding white. From behind it came slow, measured knocking, as if someone were patiently counting down the remaining time of my life. Every time I woke, icy marks appeared on my chest, like the imprint of a hand that had just rested there. My father invited a ritual master from another province to take a look. The moment he saw my birth date, his face went pale. "The 15th year," he said. "Your birthday falls on an inauspicious day. The white ghost has already written your name." The white ghost is not a wandering spirit, nor a cultivated evil entity. It is a debt collector of lifespan, born from contracts that defy heaven to alter fate. When a dragon vein is exploited, the Heavenly Dao records the debt. When the appointed time arrives, the white ghost comes to reclaim what belongs to it. One may hide from people, but never from fate. For months, my family tried everything. We moved house, changed my name, made offerings. Yet every night, I still saw a pale figure standing outside my window. Its face blurred, without eyes or nose, only a stretched smile reaching to its ears. In the end, my father remembered my grandfather's words. "If you want to live, you must change your identity." On the night before my 15th birthday, my father took me to the old hills. Not to my grandfather's grave, but to a deep lake hidden behind the forest, rarely visited by anyone. The water was black as ink, its surface so still it reflected nothing, not even the sky. My father spoke softly, his voice trembling. "This is the tale of the dragon vein. In Feng Shui, a dragon vein has not only a head and a body, but also a tail, the weakest point of dragon ki, yet also the place where the human world intersects with things that do not belong to it. Long ago, my grandfather had left behind an ancient marriage contract, forged long before I was born. It was not written on paper, but engraved directly into the dragon vein itself. As soon as my father finished speaking, the lake began to stir. The water slowly spiraled, then something pitch black rose to the surface. It was a coffin. The wood was not rotted at all, as pristine as if it had just been made. Ancient symbols were carved into the lid, symbols I had never seen, not even in my grandfather's old book. There were no pallbearers, no ropes. The coffin floated up on its own, stopping in front of me as if waiting. My father dropped to his knees and kowtowed 3 times. "I offer you my son," he said, "exchange his fate." Before I could fully grasp the meaning of his words, the coffin lid burst open. There was no corpse inside, only a vast, bottomless darkness so cold that my breath turned to mist before I even stepped in. In that instant, I understood. To enter the coffin was to enter a new fate. Once I crossed that threshold, I would no longer belong to the Liu family. But behind me, a wave of icy air swept past. The white ghost had arrived. I had no choice. The moment I stepped into the coffin, the lake surface boiled violently. The lid slammed shut. I fell not through space, but through a sensation of being severed from the world. All sound vanished. When the coffin opened again, I was standing inside a vast cavern. The ceiling was covered in shimmering stone scales, reflecting a pale blue light. Standing before me was a young woman. She had the face of a human, but her eyes were a light golden hue with vertical pupils. From the waist down, she had no legs, only the coiling body of a dragon, her scales smooth and jade-like. Each breath she took caused the air to ripple faintly. "My name is Linglong," she said, "the daughter-in-law chosen by the dragon vein." Linglong was neither demon nor ghost. She was true dragonkin, born of an ancient dragon vein, existing between heaven and earth as a keeper of balance. The marriage between us was not forged from affection, but from a covenant of survival. From the moment I stepped out of the coffin, my identity changed. I was no longer a descendant of the Liu family for the white ghost to hunt. I had become a son-in-law of the dragon clan, part of the dragon vein itself. The white ghost stood beyond the boundary of the cavern, unable to cross. It screamed, but its cries were crushed into silence by the dragon key. Linglong looked at me. There was no pity in her gaze, nor malice. "From this moment on," she said, "you live not for yourself. You live to safeguard the dragon's fate." I understood then that I had escaped one death, but in exchange I had stepped onto a path far more terrifying, a path with no return. And from that moment forward, my fate was bound to the dragon vein forever. I once believed that things would become safer once the white ghost was blocked outside the cavern by Dragon Key. Instead, everything began to constrict, as if I had been swallowed into the belly of an ancient creature slowly awakening. The cavern where Linglong lived had no day or night. A pale blue glow seeped from the stone walls, dimming and brightening in cycles like the slow breathing of the dragon vein beneath. I was not allowed to leave. There was no exit, no path back to the human world. Even time itself became vague and unreliable. 3 days after my fate was exchanged, Linglong led me deeper into the cavern. There, within a natural stone hollow, grew a single kind of fruit, dark red, shaped like a human heart, its surface veined with patterns resembling blood vessels. Heat radiated from it, warping the air around it. "Eat," Linglong said calmly. I asked what it was. She did not answer directly, only said, "Something that will let you endure the dragon vein. If you don't eat it, you will die." I took a bite. The first taste was neither sweet nor bitter. It was emptiness. I swallowed, waiting to feel full, but nothing happened. I ate again. The more I ate, the more my stomach burned, as if what I was swallowing was not food, but fire. When the fruit was gone, I collapsed to my knees, my entire body trembling with hunger. "Why am I still hungry?" I gasped. "Because you are starving for your old body," Linglong replied. "Dragon blood does not nourish humans. It only feeds those strong enough to shed their skin." The pain came swiftly. My bones began to crack with dry, brittle sounds. My spine burned as if it had been thrust into a furnace. My flesh stretched, then split open in small tears. Blood surged out, yet evaporated before it could touch the ground. I screamed, but the dragon key crushed the sound, leaving it to echo only inside my skull. I collapsed onto the stone floor, convulsing like an animal being carved alive. In my delirium, I saw visions that did not belong to my own memories. Mountains collapsing, rivers changing course. A colossal dragon coiled around the land itself, its body covered in wounds, left by heavenly punishment. I understood then, these were the memories of the dragon vein. My body was crushed and rebuilt, again and again. Bones shattered, then fused. Skin burned away, then regrew. With every recovery, I felt myself becoming less human. I don't know how long it lasted before the pain vanished abruptly. I lay there gasping on the cold stone floor. My body was soaked, but not with sweat or blood. It was coated in a pale, metallic-smelling fluid. When I pushed myself upright, I saw my blood. It was no longer red. The blood seeping from a scratch on my arm glowed faintly gold beneath the cavern's blue light. When a drop fell to the ground, the stone beneath my feet emitted a soft cracking sound, as if it were being corroded. Linglong stood behind me. For the first time, there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "You survived," she said. "The dragon blood has accepted you." From that moment on, the things that once threatened me began to keep their distance. Once, when the dragon vein stirred, a wandering yin spirit drifted to the edge of the cavern. Before it could make a sound, it froze in place, terror filling its eyes. When I stepped closer, it dissolved into black smoke, as if something within me was exerting absolute suppression. I asked Linglong what I had become. She looked at me for a long time, then said, "Not human. Not yet dragon. You are a conduit." The dragon vein requires a living being who stands between the human world and the dragon realm to maintain balance. My grandfather had once tried to become that bridge and failed. I was the final option. After my transformation, Linglong handed me a book. I recognized it immediately. It was my grandfather's ancient manuscript. Yet now the characters that once seemed blurred had become perfectly clear, as though they had never been meant for human eyes. The moment I looked, I understood. No study, no explanation. The paths of Ki, the dragon veins, the killing formations, all of it unfolded in my mind like a living map. I could see something I never could before, the fate energy of human beings. When I raised the Qingming bronze mirror to myself, the reflection was no longer entirely me. Behind my body, a long, indistinct shadow writhed, like the tail of some enormous creature. "Don't use the mirror too often," Linglong warned. "If you see yourself too clearly, you will no longer want to be human." That night, if it could even be called night, I sat alone at the edge of the dragon vein. I understood then that from the moment my blood changed color, the path back to my old life had been completely severed. I had escaped a destined death. But the price was the abandonment of my humanity, and I finally understood something my grandfather had known all along. Feng Shui does not save people. It only chooses who survives. I once believed that after the dragon blood had fully merged with me, the white ghost would never return. I was wrong. 3 months after my first transformation, the dragon vein began to fluctuate in a very different way. No longer a steady, breathing rhythm, but short, rapid convulsions, like a human heart being squeezed. The cavern walls trembled. The pale blue light flickered erratically, as though something above was pressing down upon the dragon realm itself. Linglong called it this. The Heavenly Dao had begun its audit. When a being that should have died continues to exist, the Heavenly Dao does not act immediately. It records the anomaly, waits, and then, at the appointed moment, demands repayment for the excess. That night, the Qingming bronze mirror began to vibrate on its own, not from my touch, but from within. Its once clouded surface brightened, reflecting a pale, numbing white. I saw the white ghost. It no longer stood outside the cavern's boundary as before. In the mirror, it stood directly behind me, its face smooth and white, without features except for a long liku where its mouth should be. From that opening came a voice like wind whistling through stone. You have 3 years of remaining yang lifespan. I spun around. There was nothing behind me. But in the mirror, the white ghost still stood there, unmoving, as though it had no need to manifest in the human world at all. 3 years, not the 15th year, not immediate death. A reprieve. Why? I asked. The white ghost did not answer, but Linglong was suddenly standing behind me. Because the dragon vein has guaranteed you, she said, but the Heavenly Dao does not lend without interest. The white ghost is a collector. It does not care whether you are human or dragon. It only cares about the yang, lifespan that has been appropriated. My grandfather borrowed life from the dragon vein to patch the family's fate. My eldest uncle paid part of the debt. I would pay the rest. Those 3 years were not meant for ordinary living. With each passing year, I would have to repay the dragon vein's debt. What it meant to repay was not to die in someone else's place, but to directly interfere with cause and effect. Correct one fate, break another. Destroy one killing formation, create a new karmic burden. The Heavenly Dao would permit it, but it would record every instance without exception. The more you use Feng Shui, Linglong said, the closer you move to the day you are reclaimed. Before I could fully grasp her words, the dragon vein convulsed violently. For the first time since I entered this fate, the Dragon King manifested. Not in complete form, but as a colossal, coiling shadow suspended within the dragon realm. The pressure forced me to my knees, my spine burned, my blood surged as if boiling. The white ghost manifested fully, no longer a reflection in the mirror, but a white figure standing within the dragon realm itself, uncrushed by dragon ki, unaffected by suppression. It raised its head toward the Dragon King, its voice calm, as though reciting a clause agreed upon long ago. Contract of fate alteration, deficit in yang lifespan, payment requested. The Heavenly Dao did not argue, it executed. Thunder roared, but no lightning fell. This was thunder that did not belong to the sky, but resounded directly within the consciousness. I saw the dragon veins around me tighten, like invisible chains. The Dragon King did not attack the white ghost. He only shielded. 3 streams of dragon ki descended, coiling around me. My chest burned, and then an imprint appeared, black, flower-shaped, its petals spread like cracks. The yang lifespan seal, Linglong whispered. 3 years, no more. The seal caused no pain, yet with every breath I could feel a portion of my vitality being marked. Not taken immediately, only reserved. A reminder that I was living on borrowed time. The white ghost stepped back. 3 years, it said. When the term expires, no one may intervene. Then it dissolved into the void, as if it had never been there. After that confrontation, the dragon vein weakened noticeably. The light within the cavern dimmed. Linglong remained silent for a long time. You've seen it now, she said. The dragon vein can resist the Heavenly Dao for a moment, but it cannot win forever. I asked her what would happen if I stopped using Feng Shui altogether. She shook her head. You are already a conduit. The dragon vein needs you to act. If you stop, it will find another way, and the price will not be paid by you alone. I understood then the most brutal truth of all. I was not allowed to die early, but I was also not allowed to live untouched. For the next 3 years, I would have to return to the human world, not to seek blessings, but to repay the dragon vein's debt to the Heavenly Dao. Every intervention, every shift of Feng Shui would be another signature added to my own sentence. That night, I raised the Qingming bronze mirror once more. Behind me, the coiling shadow had grown clearer. But what chilled me to the bone was this. Beside it, faintly visible, stood a white silhouette, far away, waiting patiently. The white ghost had not left. It was simply counting the time. After the white ghost withdrew, the dragon realm fell into an unusual silence. It was not peace, but the kind of silence that follows the signing of a contract. The Heavenly Dao had stamped its seal. The dragon vein had placed its wager, and I had become the irreplaceable intermediary. For many days, Linglong said nothing more. She only led me to the deepest region of the cavern, where dragon qi converged into currents visible to the naked eye. There I could clearly sense every pulse of the great earth, as if I were standing inside the body of a living being. It is time, she said. You must learn. I took out my grandfather's ancient manuscript. Before, it had been nothing more than a bundle of decaying pages to me, blurred characters that could not even form complete sentences. But after the dragon blood had fused with me, after the seal of Yang lifespan had been branded upon my chest, the book became something else entirely. The characters no longer lay still. They moved like living veins, rearranging themselves in rhythm with my breathing. The moment I opened the first page, a torrent rushed straight into my consciousness, not knowledge, but experience. I saw my grandfather in his youth, standing deep in the mountains, tracing dragon veins, as if following the spine of the world itself. I saw the times he misplaced a single Feng Shui formation, causing an entire family to wither and collapse. I also saw the times he deliberately chose not to save others, even when he could, because he knew the price afterward would be far greater. Feng Shui has no absolute right or wrong, only whether one can bear the consequence. This is not a book to be studied, Linglong said. It is a book to be inherited. I finally understood why my grandfather had never passed his true teachings to his sons. True Feng Shui cannot be taught with words. It can only be passed on to someone who already stands inside the formation. In the days that followed, I learned how to see fate, not divination, not fortune-telling, but seeing the flow of a person's yang lifespan, long or short, straight or broken, clear or turbid. When I looked at myself, that flow was pinned down by a black, flower-shaped seal. 3 branches extended outward, each fading with time. 3 years. Every time I used Feng Shui, one branch would shorten. Next, I learned how to set a formation. Not to arrange arrays, but to place people into positions the Heavenly Dao would tolerate. Some are born already misaligned with the dragon vein. To save them is to drag an entire chain of cause and effect out of alignment. My grandfather had done this once, and the price was my family. The final pages of the manuscript were what made me stop for a very long time. 3 sheets, far thicker than the rest, the characters seemingly carved into the paper by force. This was the section my grandfather had never been able to open in his lifetime, because it was not meant for someone standing outside the dragon vein. Linglong looked at me, her expression grave in a way I had never seen before. "If you open it," she said, "you will never be able to turn back." I opened it. What appeared were not powerful secret arts, but taboos, methods to sever a dragon vein, methods to disperse karma from one person onto many, methods to use oneself as a living sacrifice to patch the Heavenly Dao. I understood a cold truth then. True Feng Shui does not exist to help people live better lives, but to minimize loss after catastrophe has already been recorded. My grandfather had seen this ending long ago. He did not teach his descendants to become Feng Shui masters, because he knew that a true inheritor only appears when there is no road left to retreat. I was that inheritor, not because I was exceptional, but because I was not allowed to fail. When I raised the Qingming bronze mirror to the manuscript, the characters on the mirror and the book overlapped, forming a complete diagram. For the first time, I clearly saw the entire Feng Shui formation my grandfather had laid out over decades: the family, the dragon vein, the white ghost, and me, the final junction. "Tomorrow," Linglong said, "you will leave the dragon realm." I was startled. "Leave? To do what?" "To repay the debt," she replied, "and to learn how to live with its price." Before the coffin rose once more to carry me back to the human world, Linglong looked at me for a long time. It was not the gaze of a wife, but that of a being who had existed for far too long, who had witnessed countless defiers of heaven fall. "Remember this," she said, "Feng Shui does not choose the righteous. It only chooses those who can bear the burden." As I stepped into the coffin and the lid closed, I knew I was no longer the boy who once fled from death. I was a bearer of dragon blood, a bearer of the seal of Yang lifespan, a bearer of my family's sentence. And from that moment on, I understood. The true inheritor of Feng Shui has never been allowed to live for himself. The coffin returned me to the human world on a gloomy afternoon, the sky hanging low and gray as if pressed down upon the earth. When the lid opened, the first thing I smelled was not dragon qi, but the scent of people, the smell of dust, of money, of anxiety and calculation. Linglong did not come with me. Before the coffin closed, she left me with a single sentence: "Remember this. Well, in the human world, Feng Shui is only a tool. The one who wields it is the true weapon." The Zhang family was my first destination. They sought me out not because they believed in Feng Shui, but because they had no other choice. Within 3 months, 4 members of the Zhang household had died in succession. No accidents, no illness, no warning signs. All of the dead shared one thing in common: ashen faces, mouths frozen open, eyes wide as if they had seen something just before death. When I stepped into the main hall, the Qingming bronze mirror in my hand warmed slightly. Not in response to natural malevolence, but to man-made evil, the kind born from malicious intent, nurtured over time. The first thing I saw was not a ghost, it was rats. Dozens of dead rats were lined up along the base of the walls, their bodies shriveled, mouths agape as if their vitality had been drained. They had not died from poison, not from disease. They had died from a killing formation. I looked up at the roof beam. A single character appeared before my eyes, not written, but manifested as fate itself: death. The character had been constructed through Feng Shui. The house faced 3 degrees off northwest. The fish tank was placed incorrectly. Mirrors faced mirrors. The ancestral altar sat lower than the floor. Each detail alone was not fatal, but together they formed a single Feng Shui configuration. The Death Convergence Formation. This formation does not kill immediately. It drains young lifespans slowly, prioritizing the weakest in the bloodline. I asked, "Is there anyone in this house who is pregnant?" The room fell silent. Finally, a young woman stepped forward, clutching her belly, her face pale. The child within her was the perfect sacrifice for this formation. Unborn, not yet entered into the world, with fragile yang energy, easy to transfer karma onto. "This is not an accident," I said. "Someone in your family is using Feng Shui to kill their own kin." As soon as I finished speaking, the air in the room shuddered. A middle-aged man stepped out, Zhang Huihuan, the eldest son, the one in control of the household. His gaze was cold and sharp, not the eyes of a grieving man, but of someone waiting for a result. "You need evidence for such claims," he said. "Feng Shui is just superstition." I did not argue. I raised the Qingming bronze mirror and turned it toward the ancestral altar. In the mirror, the reflection warped. Behind the ancestral tablets, thin gray threads appeared, connecting each tablet to the bloodlines of the living. One of those threads was tightly bound with something dark, like dried blood. "Death-binding sand," I said. "Using the blood of relatives as a conduit, using an unborn child as the lock." The pregnant woman collapsed, crying without sound. Zhang Huihuan took a step back, but quickly regained his composure. "Even if that were true," he said, "so what? The Zhang family needs a successor. 4 lives in exchange for a future. That's not a loss." In that moment, I understood something the dragon vein had never taught me. The human heart can be colder than the Heavenly Dao. I took something out from my sleeve, not a talisman, not a ritual artifact, but a goo insect, something I had learned from the final 3 forbidden pages of the ancient manuscript. "You think Feng Shui only kills others?" I asked. "It always returns to the one who set the formation first." I placed the goo insect on the ground. No incantation, no command. The creature crawled straight toward Zhang Huihuan. He screamed and stumbled back, but it was too late. The goo burrowed into his wrist, vanishing beneath his skin. Within a few breaths, his flesh began to turn gray, as if his vitality were being drained. He screamed, collapsed, and stared at me with eyes filled with terror and disbelief. "Karma," I said. "You summoned it, so you pay?" When Zhang Huihuan died, the Feng Shui formation in the house collapsed instantly. The surviving rats scattered. The oppressive air visibly lightened. The pregnant woman fainted, but the fate energy of the child had stabilized. I left the Zhang household as dusk fell. For the first time standing amid crowded streets, I felt more alienated than I ever had in the dragon realm. There, everything followed rules. Here, rules could be twisted by greed. The Qingming bronze mirror in my hand grew cold, but on my chest, the black flower seal throbbed faintly once. I knew I had just repaid a portion of my yang lifespan, and I also realized the most important truth since entering the human world. Dragon veins kill for balance. Humans kill by choice. From that day on, I no longer naively believed I was saving anyone. I was merely the one who arrived too late, cleaning up the aftermath of human desire. And the road ahead of me had only just truly begun. The death of Zhang Huihuan did not end everything. It merely stripped away the final mask of the Zhang family. When the man collapsed, the others in the house did not cry. No one rushed forward. No one panicked. There was no grief in their eyes, only calculation. Fast, cold calculation, as if a script for this moment had already been prepared in their minds. Another man stepped forward, Zhang Huihuan's cousin. He looked me up and down, the trace of reverence he once showed, now completely gone. "Let's call it settled," he said. "Name your price." I looked at him in silence. "You broke the formation. The Zhang family kept its people," he continued. "Money isn't a problem. Feng Shui, in the end, is just another service." Those words made the Qingming bronze mirror in my hand tremble slightly, not from malevolent energy, but from contempt. In the human world, many people believe in Feng Shui, but they do not believe in karma. They believe that with enough money and enough cunning, the price that follows can always be negotiated. I turned to leave. "Wait," he called after me. "The thing you used earlier, that goo insect, sell it to me." I stopped. "The Zhang family still needs an heir," he said, lowering his voice. "A few more deaths won't matter." In that moment, I understood that Zhang Huihuan had never been alone. He was merely the unlucky one standing at the front. That Feng Shui formation had not been laid by him alone. It was the shared will of an entire clan. "Do you know why the goo chose him?" I asked. He sneered. "Because he was unlucky." I shook my head. "Because he was the first to believe he could stand outside karma." I raised my hand. A second goo insect crawled out from my sleeve. I did not command it. It changed direction on its own. It did not rush toward the man standing before me. Instead, it crawled slowly toward the innermost room, the one where the Zhang family kept their antiques. The man's expression changed. "What are you doing?" he shouted. I did not answer. The Gyu stopped in front of a locked wooden cabinet. The moment it touched the wood, the cabinet began to rot, as if its vitality were being drained away. Inside, a small box wrapped in red cloth was revealed. The instant the box was opened, the air in the house collapsed. A freezing current spiraled up toward the ceiling. The lights flickered violently. Everyone nearby stepped back instinctively. Inside the box was a gemstone, not large, not dazzling. Yet when I looked at it, my heart skipped a beat. The gem was gray-blue in color, and within it something seemed to move very slowly, like water frozen in mid-flow. The Qingming bronze mirror in my hand shook violently, not in warning, but in confirmation. "You don't know what you're holding," I said. The man laughed, but his smile had stiffened. "A treasure only means a higher price. Greed is the most blinding thing of all." He stepped forward, reaching to snatch the gem from the box. The moment his fingers touched it, the goo lunged. It did not burrow under the skin. It did not need time. His body hardened instantly, the change racing from his fingertips up his arm and then through his entire body. His skin turned ashen gray, dried out, cracking like weathered stone. Within a few breaths, a living man became a petrified corpse, standing in the middle of the room. No scream, no struggle. Karma does not wait for the next life. The others screamed and fled in panic. No one dared touch the gemstone again. I stepped forward and picked it up, cold but not unfamiliar. When it rested in my palm, the black flower seal on my chest flared with a sharp pain, then eased. A portion of my reserved yang lifespan loosened, if only for a moment. "A life-stabilizing jade," I murmured, "a balance for dragon ki." Only then did I understand why the Zhang family had dared to set such a vicious Feng Shui formation. They possessed a treasure to suppress backlash, but they did not understand this. A treasure can suppress disasters of heaven and earth, but it cannot suppress the human heart. The Qingming bronze mirror fell silent. The two objects in my hands resonated perfectly. This was what I needed, not to save people, but to buy time. Not to break my pact with the Heavenly Dao, but to continue existing just a little longer. When I left the Zhang residence, I looked back at the house one last time. The Feng Shui was gone. The people were gone. All that remained was a lesson carved deeper into me than any page of the ancient manuscript. Feng Shui can kill people, but greed always kills faster. And from the moment the gemstone rested in my hand, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. The game between me, the dragon veins, and the Heavenly Dao had entered a new stage. If you are drawn to dark stories of Feng Shui, dragon veins, karma, and the fragile boundary between humans, spirits, and the Heavenly Dao, subscribe and follow the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of this fate-defying journey.